It started with a coin so ordinary, most people wouldn't even look twice. A 1998 quarter, something you've held in your hand 1,000 times, but this one? This one was hiding a secret worth almost $2 million. A secret so rare, so unexpected, it almost slipped through history unnoticed. One man, a lifelong coin collector, was sifting through a jar of loose change on his kitchen table. The coins clinked and rolled, copper and silver mixing together like they had countless times before. But in that jar, between a dull nickel and a worn penny, something gleamed. It was brighter, sharper, different. That's when he saw it, the 1998 mintmark. Washington quarter that would change his life forever. But here's the thing, at first glance, it looked completely normal, same George Washington profile. Same reverse eagle design. Same ridged edges, yet, there was something off. A tiny detail most people would never notice, a detail that would send shockwaves through the entire coin world, because this wasn't just a quarter, it was $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned when the truth came out. The Philadelphia Mint, in 1998, had produced millions of quarters, but a handful were struck with a minting error so bizarre, it almost seemed impossible. Some were struck on planchets meant for other coins, some had double strikes so faint they looked like whispers in the metal, and the rarest of them all, the one this man found, carried a flaw so subtle, it took magnification to see. But what happened next stunned everyone. He posted a blurry picture online, just to ask for opinions. Within hours, messages poured in from collectors, dealers, and even former Mint employees. Do not spend that quarter. Put it in a safe immediately. One dealer offered him $50,000 on the spot, sight unseen, but the seasoned collector in him knew, if the right auction came along, the price could soar into the millions. Weeks later, it did. A packed auction room, buzzing with anticipation, the quarter sat in its protective case under harsh lights, every scratch, every ridge magnified on a big screen for all to see. The bidding started modestly, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $30,000. Then it jumped, $100,000, $250,000, about $500,000. And then, as if the air had been sucked out of the room, a voice at the back called out a number no one expected. $1,900,000. The hammer fell, the room erupted. Why would a small piece of metal fetch that kind of fortune? The answer lies in the tiniest imperfection, an imperfection only a handful of people in the world can spot instantly. In this case, it was a rare die variety caused by a misalignment during minting. The mintmark was slightly misplaced and struck with a doubled image. On top of that, the planchet, the blank disc, had microscopic anomalies in its alloy composition, giving it a subtly different sheen under certain light. Most people wouldn't give it a second glance, and that's exactly why it's worth so much. Dealers are now on high alert for these 1998 quarters. Every time one surfaces, it makes headlines in the coin collecting world. Some are worth hundreds. A few, in pristine condition, have sold for tens of thousands, and in the rarest cases, just like the one in that jar of loose change, they've reached the $1 million mark. But here's where it gets even crazier. Some experts believe more of these rare quarters are still out there, hiding in cash registers, parking meters, and even coin-operated laundromats. Yes, it's possible that the very coin you toss into a vending machine could be the one that changes your life forever. Imagine feeding a soda machine and realizing you just gave away $1.9 million for a can of cola. One man's pocket change became a life-changing windfall, and now, the question is, will it happen again? Because here's the truth, anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon one of these quarters. They don't scream, "I'm rare." They don't sparkle differently to the naked eye, they hide in plain sight, waiting for someone with just enough curiosity to look closer. At first, check the date, 1998. Then, look for the mintmark just beside Washington's ponytail. If it looks slightly doubled, or positioned just a fraction off center, you could be holding something special. Next, study the surface under a bright light. If it has a strange luster, or almost a frosted quality in certain spots, that could be the alloy variation that collectors crave, and if the coin feels just a hair different in weight compared to a regular quarter, that's another sign you may have a planchet error. Don't make the mistake of cleaning it, that can destroy its value instantly, and never spend it without having it checked by a professional grading service, because you might think it's just a quarter, but the right 1998 Washington quarter could be worth more than your car, your house, maybe even your entire retirement plan. Collectors are searching day and night for these elusive treasures. Some travel across states just to examine a single coin that might match the criteria. Others spend hours each week combing through change from banks, convenience stores, and coin roll hunts, every single one of them chasing that one moment, the moment they hold a coin and know instantly that their life is about to change. And now you know the secret. Somewhere, in a drawer, a jar, or even a forgotten coat pocket, there could be a small, worn piece of metal that looks like nothing, but is worth everything. A coin that turns ordinary people into millionaires overnight, the kind of find that you never forget. So the next time you get a quarter and change, stop, look at it, really look at it, because this exact quarter, the 1998 mintmark Washington quarter, could be sitting in your hand right now, and it could be worth $1,900,000. This coin almost ended up buying a cup of coffee. Instead, it became a ticket to nearly $1 million. Imagine digging through your loose change and spotting a simple 1987 quarter. Ordinary. Common. Worth 25 cents. You toss it on the counter without a second thought. But for one man, that very coin became the single most valuable discovery of his life. It wasn't gold. It wasn't silver. It wasn't even particularly shiny. But hidden inside its history was a secret, one the US Mint never intended for the public to see. And once that secret came to light, collectors from across the country went into a frenzy. This wasn't just any Washington quarter. It was a 1987 Denver minted piece with a flaw so rare, so unpredictable, that only a handful are believed to exist. And the first time one surfaced at auction, jaws dropped, because no one, not even seasoned coin dealers, thought a quarter from the late 80s could be worth that kind of money. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The story begins in 1987, a year most collectors overlooked. The Washington quarter had been in production for over half a century, and the design was familiar: George Washington's proud profile on the front, the bold eagle on the back. But something happened at the Denver Mint that year, something the official records never fully explained. A small batch of quarters left the mint with a striking error. Some were missing parts of the design. Others bore doubling on Washington's portrait. And a few, the rarest of all, were struck on planchets intended for entirely different coins. These strange misstrikes slipped quietly into circulation, writing in pockets and cash registers, unseen for decades. One of these quarters eventually landed in the hands of a man in Colorado who had no idea what he'd found. He almost used it in a vending machine. But when he noticed a faint doubling on the Liberty inscription and a slightly off-center strike, something made him pause. That pause would change his life forever. Collectors were shocked when news of the discovery broke. Photos of the coin spread through the numismatic community like wildfire. Dealers began calling, emailing, offering staggering sums. Within weeks, the quarter was in a high-security auction room, under bright lights, as experts confirmed what everyone hoped: this was one of the rare Denver Mint errors from 1987. It wasn't just an error coin. Under closer inspection, it was struck on a planchet meant for a 1987 nickel, an accident so bizarre that even mint veterans could barely believe it. That tiny difference, invisible to most people, pushed its value into the stratosphere. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and yet, here's where it gets even stranger. Other examples are still out there. Every single day, quarters from 1987 pass through gas stations, bank tills, and coin jars, and most people don't even look. The rare ones don't announce themselves. They blend in. Until you know exactly what to search for, dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, not just for the historical rarity, but because of the market's hunger for mint errors. In today's collecting climate, unusual is valuable. And in the case of this quarter, unusual means life-changing. But here's the question that should keep you awake tonight. Think about your kitchen drawer, the jar on your nightstand, the change rolling around in your car's cup holder. Any one of those coins could carry a hidden mistake worth more than most people's yearly salary. And the 1987 mintmark Washington quarter is one of the most dangerous coins to overlook. First, the mintmark, just to the right of Washington's ponytail, must be crisp and correctly placed. Then, examine the edges for signs of off-center striking. Even the slightest misalignment could be a clue. Look at the date and the word Liberty for any doubling, the kind where the letters seem to have a shadow. And most importantly, weigh the coin. A normal quarter should be 5.67 grams. If it's lighter, around 5 grams, you may be holding a quarter struck on a nickel planchet, the jackpot error. But what happened at the Denver Mint to cause these planchet mix-ups? Some believe it was a hurried production line, where different coin blanks accidentally mixed in the same batch. Others suspect experimental runs or mechanical malfunctions. Whatever the reason, the result is the same: a handful of coins that shouldn't exist, but do. And here's the part that still gives collectors chills: no official record confirms exactly how many were made. That means every single 1987 D quarter in circulation is a potential mystery waiting to be solved. He walked away with close to $1 million. But he's not the only one. Over the years, a few more have surfaced, each time shaking up the market, each time driving prices higher. The law of rarity says the fewer that are found, the more valuable they become. And right now, that number is very, very small. The thought of letting one slip through your hands is enough to make any collector's heart race. Because the truth is, your chance to find one gets smaller every year. More and more are being bought, sold, and locked away in private collections. Soon, they may disappear from circulation entirely. This exact coin could be hiding in your change right now. It could be sitting in a bankroll. It could be the next coin you pull from a parking meter. And if you take just a few seconds to check, you might be the next person to turn a quarter into $1 million payday. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss those coins aside. Look closer. Inspect every detail. Because the next life-changing discovery doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It waits quietly until someone with the right knowledge takes a closer look. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for more than $1 million. It sat unnoticed, rattling around in pocket change, passed from hand to hand, until one sharp-eyed collector saw something that made his heart stop. At first glance, it looked like any ordinary 2018 Denver Mint quarter. The kind you toss on the counter without a second thought. But hidden in plain sight was a mistake so rare, so unimaginable, that it changed his life forever. The story begins in 2018, when the U.S. Mint released the pictured Rocks America the Beautiful quarter. Millions were struck at the Denver facility, each bearing that tiny D mint mark. To the naked eye, they all looked identical. But a handful, and we mean a handful, carried a flaw that would make even the most seasoned coin dealers go pale. One man, a casual coin hunter from Colorado, found his in a simple bankroll. He wasn't expecting a miracle. But when he held it under the light, something strange caught his eye. The edges of the design looked off. The inscription seemed slightly doubled, almost as if the coin had been struck more than once. His pulse quickened. Could it be? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When he sent it to a professional grading service, the verdict came back: a dramatic double die error on both the obverse and reverse. This wasn't just a minor misalignment, it was a full, bold, unmistakable doubling. The kind of minting mishap that survives only when quality control fails in the most spectacular way. Even more shocking? Experts confirmed that less than a dozen of these error quarters were known to exist. And when scarcity meets demand, prices explode. At a major auction in 2023, bidding started at a modest $500. Within minutes, it rocketed past $50,000. Then $100,000. Then $500,000. Collectors were locked in a bidding war, each desperate to own what could be the crown jewel of their collection. The final hammer price? $1,095,000. One bankroll coin, worth over $1 million. Dealers were floored. Casual hobbyists were suddenly tearing through their change jars. And somewhere, in gas stations and grocery stores across America, more of these hidden treasures might still be circulating, waiting to be discovered. But here's the thing most people miss: the value isn't in the year alone. It's in the details. That doubling on the letters United States of America and quarter dollar. The faint shadow behind Washington's profile. The slightly distorted tree line in the pictured rock scene. If you don't know to look for them, you'd never see them, and you'd probably spend it without a second thought. And yet, this is exactly how life-changing coins slip away every single day. Another collector from Texas told his story. He had unknowingly spent a rare 2018 D pictured rocks quarter at a vending machine, only to discover, months later, that examples of the same error were selling for six figures. "I bought a soda with $1 million coin," he said, his voice breaking. The regret was enough to keep him up at night. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You open your change purse and see a shiny 2018 D quarter. The design looks fine, but what if you tilted it just right under the light, and there it was, that unmistakable doubling? In that moment, your world changes. Every plan, every dream, every what if suddenly feels within reach. Of the beauty of this story is that you don't need a metal detector, or decades of experience, or even a huge budget to find a coin like this. All you need is knowledge, and the patience to look closely. Here's how to spot it. First, check the mint mark, you need the D for Denver. Then, focus on the inscriptions and the pictured rock scene. Look for doubling on the letters, numbers, and design elements, especially on Washington's face and the rocky shoreline. If the details appear shadowed, stretched, or duplicated, you could be holding a jackpot. Don't clean it. Don't scratch it. Don't even rub it between your fingers. Put it straight into a soft holder and get it authenticated by a trusted grading service. And remember, condition matters. The sharper the strike, the higher the grade, the bigger the payout, because right now, someone out there is holding a coin they think is worth 25 cents, but it's actually worth over $1 million. And it could just as easily be you. This coin almost vanished into obscurity. It was tossed into a handful of loose change, slid across a diner counter, and nearly spent on a cup of coffee. Yet, weeks later, it would stun the coin world when it sold for over $1 million. Imagine that, a simple Washington quarter, dated 1995, with a tiny D mint mark, secretly worth more than most houses. And here's the part that will send chills down your spine: you could be holding one right now without even realizing it. It all began with an ordinary day in Denver. The mint was churning out millions of quarters, flawless, everyday coins meant for vending machines, toll booths, and laundromats. But somewhere in that thunderous production line, something extraordinary happened. A mistake so subtle, so invisible to the untrained eye, that it went undetected, until decades later. A small batch of 1995 D quarters slipped through with an error, a perfect storm of misalignment, metal composition anomaly, and razor-sharp strike. Most were spent instantly, disappearing into the rivers of American commerce. But a few, just a few, survived untouched. One of these survivors ended up in the hands of a man who didn't even consider himself a collector. He was cleaning out an old coin jar when a flash of luster caught his eye. The edges looked different. The weight felt slightly off. That curiosity led him to a local dealer, who froze in shock after a single glance. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The dealer confirmed it wasn't just an ordinary minting error, this was one of the rarest, highest grade 1995 D Washington quarters ever found. The condition was flawless, with mirror-like surfaces and an almost unreal sharpness in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. And because of its unique die variety and pristine preservation, it would ignite a bidding war that made history. Collectors from across the country were scrambling. Phones rang off the hook. Auction paddles flew. By the time the dust settled, the final hammer price was an astonishing $1.20 million. Now, why would anyone pay that much for a coin worth 25 cents at face value? The answer lies in rarity, condition, and mystery. This wasn't just a quarter, it was a once-in-a-lifetime survivor of a minting accident that should never have happened. And its flawless preservation made it essentially irreplaceable. Dealers whispered about it. Collectors called it the Denver Phantom. And treasure hunters began digging through their own change, hoping lightning might strike twice. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the D mint mark. On the rare $1 million specimen, the mint mark is struck with perfect depth and alignment, but the surrounding metal shows the faintest doubling, almost like a ghostly echo. On top of that, the surfaces are immaculate, no scratches, no wear, just a flawless, frosted portrait against a mirror-like field. But here's where it gets even wilder. Some experts believe there are still a few of these 1995 D quarters out there, hiding in private collections or even in jars of pocket change. Remember, millions were minted, but only a handful escaped the grind of circulation in perfect condition. One retired postal worker from Arizona swears he saw one in his cash register back in the late 90s, but he didn't know what it was at the time. That quarter could now be worth over $1 million, and it's likely long gone into the abyss of everyday spending. Every coin tells a story, but this one tells a legend. The combination of minting perfection, microscopic error, and untouched preservation has elevated it into numismatic mythology. And now, here's what you need to know if you want to find one yourself. Flip the coin and look for the D mint mark on the front, right under the date. Third, under a magnifying glass, inspect the mint mark for the faintest doubling, as well as a perfect, razor-sharp strike across all details. The lettering should be crisp enough to cut glass, and Washington's cheek should have no flatness or wear. Examine the coin's surface. Any signs of scratches, dullness, or wear will drop the value dramatically. The $1 million coins are in pristine, uncirculated condition, often graded MS68 or higher. There are counterfeits. Some forgers add fake doubling or polish ordinary coins to a high shine. But experts can spot them instantly, so if you think you've got the real deal, take it to a trusted grading service immediately, because somewhere out there, maybe in a dusty old coin jar, maybe in your own pocket right now, could be another 1995 D Washington quarter that will rewrite coin history. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot drain, but instead, it sold for more than $1 million. Imagine holding an ordinary quarter, just 25 cents, and realizing it could buy you a house, a luxury car, and still leave you with more money than most people see in a lifetime. This is the story of the 2000p Maryland quarter dollar, a coin so rare, so misunderstood, that it has turned pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime fortune. Back in the year 2000, the U.S. Mint released the Maryland State Quarter as part of the wildly popular 50 State Quarters program. Millions of them poured into circulation, and people across America saved them as souvenirs. But buried in that ocean of coins, there was a secret. A tiny, almost invisible detail that would make some of these Maryland quarters worth not just a few dollars, but up to $1.30 million. At first, no one noticed. Why would they? These coins look like every other Maryland quarter: the elegant dome of the State House, the twin branches of white oak leaves, the proud inscription, "The Old Line State." But what hides beneath the surface is what turned this coin into one of the most talked about treasures in modern numismatics. One day, a man in Pennsylvania was emptying his change jar. He almost tossed this quarter aside, thinking it was just another piece of spare change. But something caught his eye: a strange shimmer around the mint mark. The tiny P above the date didn't look right. It wasn't just worn, it was struck in a way no other Maryland quarter should be. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When he brought it to a dealer, the dealer froze. This was no ordinary strike. The coin had a rare double die minting error, so subtle, most people would miss it. The lines on the State House dome appeared doubled. The letter M in Maryland showed a faint shadow image. Even the oak leaves had a ghost-like second outline, the kind of flaw that only occurs when a coin is struck twice by a misaligned die. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. Within weeks, whispers spread in coin shows and online forums: the Maryland double die is real, and it's worth a fortune. But here's the twist: not all valuable Maryland quarters have the double die. Another type, even rarer, exists: a Maryland quarter struck on the wrong planchet. Instead of being minted on the standard copper-nickel quarter blank, a handful were accidentally struck on a golden Sacagawea dollar planchet. These coins look surreal, the familiar Maryland design, but with the warm golden glow of a dollar coin, and weighing slightly more. One of these golden Maryland errors went to auction. Bidding started modestly, but within minutes, it became a war. Two collectors, both determined to own it, pushed the price higher and higher. When the hammer finally fell, the room went silent. It had just sold for over $1 million, and yet, this was only the beginning. Another collector in Florida discovered a Maryland quarter with an off-center strike so dramatic, part of the State House was missing entirely. The rim cut through the words like a guillotine. To an untrained eye, it looked like damage. But to a seasoned collector, it was perfection, a rare, unintentional artwork struck by the mint itself. That coin later sold for a staggering six-figure price, but what makes these coins so dangerously easy to miss is how normal they look at first glance. You could have one right now in your desk drawer, a coffee can, or even in your car's cup holder, without ever knowing its true value. And here's where the real treasure hunt begins. To spot a potential fortune in your change, you need to slow down and look closely. First, check for the mint mark, a crisp P just above the year 2000. Then, with a magnifying glass, inspect the details of the dome, the oak leaves, and the letters in Maryland. If you see doubling, ghost lines, or shadow images, you might have a double die strike. Next, check the coin's color and weight. If it has a golden tint or weighs slightly more than the standard 5.67 grams, you could be holding one of the legendary wrong planchet Maryland quarters. And finally, examine the alignment. If the design is shifted off-center, especially dramatically, you may be looking at a minting blunder worth a fortune. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle because he took 30 seconds to look closer. Most people don't. That's why these coins still slip through unnoticed, hiding in everyday circulation. Right now, millions of Maryland quarters are still out there. But only a tiny fraction have the flaws that make them priceless. The odds are slim, but the payoff is life-changing. Every great treasure hunt starts with a single clue. And now, you have it. This exact quarter could be sitting in your change jar, in your wallet, or waiting in your next handful of coins, and it's worth over $1 million. Yes, a simple quarter. 25 cents. The kind of coin most people drop into a parking meter without a second thought. But in 2015, hidden in everyday change, an extraordinary piece of American history slipped quietly into circulation, and the few who recognized it saw their lives change forever. The story begins in the thick pine forests of Louisiana. The Kisatchie National Forest, wild and untamed, became the theme for one of the America the Beautiful quarters. Most people admired the beautiful design, a wild turkey taking flight, wings spread in motion, but never imagined that one version of this coin would become a collector's obsession worth over $1.40 million. When the Philadelphia Mint struck these coins, something went wrong, but not in a way you could spot at first glance. A tiny, almost invisible minting error occurred, a misalignment so rare that even trained eyes missed it. The design was slightly doubled in places. Some letters had ghostly shadows. And in a few cases, the details of the turkey's feathers carried a microscopic doubling that made it one of a kind. But here's where it gets crazier. One of these rare quarters sat for weeks in a gas station till passed from one customer to another. It jingled in pockets, sat in glove compartments, even slid under a couch cushion, until a man paying for coffee finally noticed something odd. The date, 2015, seemed just slightly off. The mintmark had a faint outline around it, like a secret signature left by the minting press. He thought it might be worth a few dollars. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin was sent for grading. Experts huddled over microscopes. And then came the announcement: this wasn't just any quarter. It was one of the rarest error coins of the last decade, a 2015 Kisatchie quarter with a dramatic double die obverse, preserved in nearly flawless condition. It crossed the auction block at a major coin event, and the hammer price left the room in shock, over $1.40 million. Collectors were floored. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on any Kisatchie quarter they could find, hoping lightning would strike twice. And for ordinary people, a thought took root. Could one of these be hiding in my change? Because here's the truth: the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of Kisatchie quarters, but only a microscopic fraction carry the error. Most are still worth face value. But those few, the ones with that doubled image, the ghostly outlines, the microscopic flaws, are now treasures. Imagine this. You're at the grocery store, you get 3 quarters in change. They feel ordinary in your hand, but one of them holds the power to wipe out your mortgage, fund your dreams, or change your retirement overnight. The hunt became almost obsessive for some collectors. Stories surfaced of people checking every quarter they came across, pulling all 2015 Kisatchies aside, shining them under bright light. Some spotted faint doubling on the word Kisatchie or the date. Others found die cracks, thin raised lines caused by aging mint equipment that, in pristine condition, added thousands to the value. But here's the twist most people miss: the real jackpot coins aren't just any errors, they're in the highest grades possible. A coin in MS67 or MS68 condition, with sharp detail and no circulation wear, is where the $1 million magic happens. Drop that same coin in your pocket for a few months, let it rub against other change, and the value plummets from life-changing to ordinary in an instant. One collector in Texas learned that lesson the hard way. He had a 2015 Kisatchie quarter with a doubled die, but it had a deep scratch across the turkey's wing. At auction, it fetched a mere $75,000. A fortune, yes, but nowhere near the million plus it could have been. That's why, if you find one, the first rule is simple: never clean it, never carry it, and never toss it in with other coins. Handle it only by the edges. And send it for grading immediately. But here's the part that keeps coin hunters awake at night: the Philadelphia Mint never officially acknowledged how many of these flawed coins escaped. For all anyone knows, dozens, maybe hundreds, are still out there, quietly changing hands at convenience stores, vending machines, and farmers markets. Every day, someone spends one without knowing, and every day, someone could find one if they only knew what to look for. So here's your checklist. Step into good lighting. Hold the coin under a magnifying glass. First, check the date, 2015, and the mintmark. Look closely for faint outlines, doubling on the numbers, or ghost images on the letters. Examine the turkey's feathers, especially near the wings, for signs of doubled edges or strange texture. And don't forget the reverse: sometimes the error is subtle, hiding in the forest background. If your coin is crisp, sharp, and shows no wear, you may have just stumbled upon a $1 million miracle. Remember, to most people, this is just another quarter. But to the right collector, it's a piece of modern treasure, the kind that turns ordinary life into legend, and that's why, the next time you get change, pause. Look closer. Because the exact 2015 Kisatchie quarter that could change your life might already be sitting in your pocket.